You might see her in the background. This is gonna be kind of a cut and dry seminar, but it's definitely important, especially if you are a support. How do you not get destroyed while playing Lulu support? How do you get destroyed? That's my question. It's my counter question. Lulu support, it's really, I like it a lot. And should you take notes? Yes, you can take notes. This is also going to be going on YouTube, so tomorrow. So, I mean, if you don't want to take notes, then you can always just rewatch whatever. But welcome. And Lulu is really strong just because she's got very aggressive autos, with her passive that you can apply at level 1.
Did you turn donations off yet?
I haven't. I have not. Nope. Can't say that I did. But, let's see. We will now. Lulu support, going back to that, very aggressive, kind of like Bard. Sets up the whole level 1. She can 1v2 really early using her Q or E, whatever you want to start, and just pretty much auto them down. You get free gold for it, so it's good. Toronto support, he's my best support, but my ADC mains do not like it. No one's going to like a lot of supports that you pick. There's a lot of... I have 30 supports listed. I'm not going to go through each individually, but a lot of people don't like, most of them. But Toronto support's really good, especially in this tank meta. Not only does he take away a top tier pick for the top lane by playing Toronto support, but you also can, use his ults to diminish their tank as well. So he's a really good pick. If people have a problem with it, just don't worry about it. You just do you, man. Fiddle. Hey, I haven't seen Fiddle in a long time. It just feels as possible to poke out any tanky champs out of lane without getting counter engaged. So that's and we'll go over that too, depending on which gold items to take too, because that's very, very, very important. We'll give it another minute and then we'll start, guys. Fun people coming. I would have to wait to donate. You can donate during. I mean, I'll just won't read it till the end. Shalom, shalom, my friend. Another good question, Ghostman. We're going to be going over that, man. Definitely going to be going over that. But the sports is incredible fun because nobody knows how to deal with it, and he is getting buffed too, so... I should go over Morg EUs, please. Also, guys, what I plan on doing... first of all, thank you all for coming so far. Any late bloomers, thanks for coming. If you guys have any questions, I'm going to be posting this tomorrow on YouTube, and if you can't watch it all, wait till tomorrow, check it out there, and post your questions on your comments, because I want to do a follow-up video answering all these questions that I'm not going to be able to ask. Okay? Yes, camera did freeze. Good. That's a bad picture of me. So if you got questions, there will be a little Q&A at the end, but I have some time constraints tonight, so save some questions, post them on YouTube, or post them in the chat, and when I'm going back tomorrow, I can look at it through the rebroadcast, look at the questions, write them down, and then I can be able to do a follow-up video just answering everybody's questions. So, yeah. Dog cam next seminar. My dog doesn't stay still, otherwise I wouldn't mind doing that. Alright, well, I'm going to turn off the cam now. Just because last time it interfered. I'm learning from, the last seminar, things to do and not to do, like the alerts. So thank you, Witty, for the generous $2.50 donation, but don't want that to be cutting into any of the educational shit that we're going to be going through. Also, I'm going to be swearing a lot. If you got a problem with that, I deeply apologize. Appropriate t-shirt, thank you. Alright, so, beginning. Carrying as a support. What's the big whoop? Well, one, if you are a support main, you are going to find it very, very difficult to carry your games as a support. Many reasons, I should say, not even a couple. One of the main things is that support is one of the only, probably the only role where damage isn't necessarily oriented in your carrying ability, right? So if you're playing mid, if you're playing ADC, even top and jungle, if you get ahead, you're able to build damage items or tanky items, even building like top lane, for example, Sunfire, Iceborne, very tanky items. You still do like second to top damage on the team if you get ahead. Support, you can't do that. I mean, you can, it's not really that beneficial though, but you can't really carry through a damage oriented way unless you're playing a damage oriented support, which we'll be going over. So, how do supports carry if they don't have all this damage oriented stuff into their kit? How do they carry if they have to build around their team? Whereas if you get fed as any other role, you build for yourself. If you get fed on support or you start accumulating a lot of gold as support, you build for your team. That's how you should be building. So, yeah, that's what we're going to be going over. So the overview, we're just going to talk a little bit of myself, just give a quick overview of why, I can back up what I say. Then we're going to be going over some support duties, the main ideas of support, and the reasons why and how you carry as a support. And then we'll be just going over, all the things about support. General tips and tricks, especially about developing your habits, okay? League, if you've played it for a long time, it's all about muscle memory. It's all about habitual learning. So I'll give you guys some tools that you can use to incorporate getting better as a support. Not just to carry, but to improve yourself as well. Secondly, we're going to be going over vision. Vision is the primary way to carry as a support. I cannot stress that enough. Vision is the primary way to carry. Okay? Everyone else, it's pretty much oriented around their item paths, item builds, damage, tank, whatever. Supports, vision. That's your number one role. You are the only role, other than like a jungler with the jungle item with the wards, forgot at the top of my head, that builds a sightstone. You're the only one. Otherwise, everybody relies on trinkets. You're the only one. So your number one job is vision. Okay? We'll be going over that later. Number two, the second definite way to carry your games is to roam, to apply pressure. When to roam. Why do you roam? The different situations. We'll be going over I made a situation that happened to me the other day about roaming and where you should roam, and given the circumstances of setting up your roam as well. So we'll be going over that. At the end, I'll just give a little brief talk about the end game, what's important, what you should be doing, how to set up objectives. So for this roaming, the vision, and everything, we're going to be using what's called RiftKit. You can find it at www.riftkit.net. Okay, so riftkit.net, I'll show you guys what that looks like in a bit. Really just kind of a map where we can place and draw on, Summoner's Rift to see where we should be putting wards. It's really useful. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. And then to conclude, we're going to be going over the different types of supports, the ways each of these, three categories that I defined, that they carry individually. Yes, I have about 30 supports listed. A lot of them are situational, a lot of them are also unconventional, but these are the main supports you will see, or that I have seen in my long experience of playing League. And so these three different categories we'll be talking about the pros, cons, and how each of them individually carry. At the end, like I said, we'll be doing a Q&A. If you're just tuning in now, Q&A at the end just for a little bit. But if there's any other questions that I can't get to, I will be posting this on YouTube. Please post your questions there. Post your questions into the Twitch chat, and I can get to them at a later date with a follow-up video. So, moving on. Support, about myself. Been playing since Season 2. I have a lot of fucking experience because of that. Ever since I started playing, I've played ranked 5s, okay? And I've always been the primary or secondary shot caller. Every single time. So I have a good macro knowledge base since I've been shot calling and have a lot of experience from doing this over the past couple years. I've won many tournaments. I've lost more tournaments. I've been on more teams than I can count. I've been a coach. For teams, I've been an analyst for games. Yeah, I've done so much. But right now, I have over 50 people who I have been coached, or I have coached, do coach currently, or keep up with, or have plans to coach that are currently signed up or wanting to have coach. So I have a lot of students, got a lot of stuff. Um, and that brings a lot of experience. I've played support for a couple months. I've played support off and on over the years. I love it's probably my favorite role. Currently, right now, I'm playing. If you've watched my stream recently, I've been playing top lane, and that's just because I like to immerse myself in different roles. I like to, keep the game fresh and playing different roles. But support, that's where my heart's at. I love it. Definitely, probably gonna go right back to it soon. But support's a great role, guys. And moving on, we got our support duties. So what are the main duties of support? Kind of went over a little bit earlier, but number one, vision. Vision, primary objective, your primary duty. That's if you don't buy sight soon, you have no business playing as a support. That is just the cold hard truth. And with that, the reason why vision's so important, right, is because it sets up everything throughout the game. Okay, often I get asked, what happens if you get behind, right? Well, vision is the way you can get back into the game, okay? Having that one ward, I've had so many games where one ward has won us the game because we got to pick off that one ward. We got a ward on our blue, and we see their enemy mid laner out by their lonesome, right? Taking blue buff. Get the pick, get the kill. It's now a 5v4. We push, we win the game. Shit like that. That is why vision's important. It gives you objective control as well. If you think that junglers control objectives, you are mistaken, because controlling an objective doesn't mean starting the objective. It doesn't mean trying to steal the objective. It means control the objective. It means that you have vision to protect and take and own that objective. Okay? And I'm not just talking about Dragon and Baron. I'm talking about buffs too. Blue buff, red buff on both sides. Having vision around these areas or around Dragon and Baron, there's not a jungler who can do all these and take all these objectives without proper vision. If you see your jungler taking Dragon and he doesn't have a pink in there, or if he doesn't have vision around it and he dies, hello, no, you can't be doing that. You need vision. So supports are the reason why objectives are so important and how you maintain objective control. Secondly, protection. Everybody knows this. Everyone who's played League understands, and this is okay, what I'm about to say, so please nobody get offended. ADCs are the most selfish. It's the most selfish role, and it should be, okay. AD carry, carry is written into the whole name of the role. So these guys need your protection, but please don't get mistaken. You are not their bitch. They are your bitch. You tell them what to do, okay, in the lane, and you make sure they carry the game. If it wasn't for you, they can't do their job. Let's just make that shit clear. So anyone who says that you follow the AD carry rule, no, the AD carry follows your rule. They right click, you do most of the other work, okay? And if you've played support, you well understand that you do all these great and significant things to get your team together, you just get no credit, okay? So that's your secondary job, is protecting your carries, okay? Thirdly, roaming, like I said, this is the way that you also have a big impact on the game. And roaming also goes with protection and vision, okay? So this is the means to getting your first two jobs done, which is vision and protection. Vision. To provide vision for your team, you need to roam from lane, okay? Secondly, protecting your carries. Carries also include the people that are carrying the game. I understand that AD carry is your number one protection priority, but if your mid laner or your jungler is 7-0 or 7-2 or fed, they are your main carry. If you have a 7-2 Kindred or Graves or Nocturne, whoever, and you have an 0-4 ADC, you best be protecting that jungler over the AD carry, because they're the ones doing all the work. They're the ones that are going to get you into this game and win it for you, not the AD carry who has been fucking up bottom. You know what I mean? So this is what you do. You roam to protect these individuals, and you roam to get your team ahead. I have one question. What if your question asked by Leela in the chat, what if one of your teammates just overextend and feed the enemy team extends out? What do you do to help? We'll get into that later. Hopefully, we'll just get into that later because I don't want to stray away from this right now. What if you have it's 7 mid? And these are a lot of situational questions that you guys are asking, right? A lot of situational. And we'll get into it. Don't worry. We'll get into it on the ways that you can still have an impact. Just keep in mind, if you haven't watched my first seminar, win conditions, I do go over, there's a lot of games that you're just flat out not going to win. Nothing you can do. Faker can't carry games all the time. There's no way that you are going to be able to carry games. There's no way I'm going to be able to carry every game. The league is generated, the system is created to try and keep it around a 50%, win-loss ratio. That's what it's going to be at for the most part. All right, 55%, whatever, 45%. It's going to be around the 50% margin. So there are going to be a lot of games that you end up losing that you couldn't have won. But as long as we're looking back on them and realizing that you could have improved, that's the important part. Okay. Yeah. Hopefully, Agent, you can get this to work. I hopefully it's not pausing for anyone else. If there is a problem, let me know. I'll restart the stream. We'll get this going. So, following with roaming, it opens up to make plays. The roam also is used not only for vision and to protect, but it's also to make plays. If you have a pink in place, if you have vision in place, like we said earlier, this is what is used to make plays. Roaming top lane doesn't happen a lot in supports from what I've watched and from what I've seen and from what I've played with in the lower elos. Up in the upper elos, you are going to see a lot of people roam top, and it's because it's unexpected, and it impacts the game pretty heavily. Okay, Rift Herald is still a very good objective to obtain. Getting your top laners ahead and providing map pressure on the top lane, very, very important. Okay, that's a different subject. Talking about map pressure, but still, roaming is just a very big subject, and we will go over heavily. Again, though, I want to talk about gold items. Which one is best? One of the main, and the reason why I want to put this in there is one of the main questions I get asked is about gold items, and I'm just gonna throw it out there my general idea about all three. So all three are condition based. All three of them, Spell Thieves and Relic, are more dependent on your application of the item than coin. All three are dependent upon your ability to apply to gain gold. Okay, Spell Thieves, for example, requires you to base your gold acquisition around a timer. So you get a three stack timer. It ticks up and stacks at the third stack, and you can't be acquiring gold unless you're autoing or using the ability to damage a tower or an enemy champion. That's how you get gold, right? It's plain and simple. That's the only way you get gold, right? Well, other than the passive gold, but that's the main way you get gold. It's around your application of it. Relic, same thing. You have to execute minions. If you're playing Thresh and you have a horrible time last hitting these minions and executing them to get gold, then why are you getting Relic on Thresh? If you can't do it, and you're not practicing it in normals, but if you can't do it in ranked, why are you doing it then? Okay? Also, it's dependent on you actually being able to execute them, like we said, Thresh. And late game, this is just really, really hard. Secondly, it's dependent on which minions you kill. So if you choose to kill the 3 caster minions over the 3 melee minions, or you miss siege minions, you're missing out on more gold. So this is also very dependent upon your application of it, just like Spell Thieves. And both of them, if you're not applying them, you're not going to be accumulating gold. Coin is still dependent, okay? Because it relies on your positioning around the depth of minions to acquire your gold. However, it is still the most consistent gold value item because it doesn't directly necessitate your performance of actions. So, big fancy wording, what that basically means is you only have to be around minions that die to acquire gold. So it still requires you to be in the area, but it doesn't actually require you to be coming up and executing a minion or stepping up in front and autoing a tower or an enemy champion that could result in a death later. And I'm not making a state saying that, coin is better than all the others. I'm not. I'm just saying coin is the safest option. It really is. And you actually don't lose as much gold as people think you do. So, for example, one of the main sports that I coach is Janna. And the debate is often coin or Spell Thieves. Okay? So, if you are unable to apply stacks when you have Spell Thieves, then why buy it? Right? So, for instance, I'll be playing Janna, and I have, we'll say, Janna and Vayne going against a Draven Alistar. Draven and Alistar, very aggro. Can kill, and can kill me or Vayne pretty easily unless we outplay them, but I'm not going to be relying on that, right? So while some matchups, right, and Alistair's a really good idea with this, because if it's like Alistair and Ezreal, I can still abuse my spell thieves because Alistair has to go for these executions, and I can get a lot of gold and keep my gold on a timer because he's so tanky, he's not going to worry about my autos or damage to him, so I can get a lot of gold. But if he's in a very strong matchup against a very weak matchup like Draven v Vayne, why am I coming up to auto? Because that is just an opportunity for me to die. I'm respecting his engage. I'm respecting the damage output that both of them have, and I'm not going to put that at risk for the game. Okay? So that just pretty much basically says if you are afraid and you respect the damage output and the CC control, even playing against like Blitzcrank and Jhin, okay? You respect the hook, you respect the long CC chain that Jhin and damage output that Jhin has. You don't want to be buying Spell Thieves because you shouldn't be trying to put yourself in a position to apply it in the first place. And oftentimes, you'll see Soraka players or Janna players, they'll buy Spell Thieves and then they just sit 10 feet back from their AD carry, and you're not getting any gold for that. Why not buy a coin? If you're not keeping that Spell Thieves timer running all the way through and not having it stack up to 3, then why buy it? Okay. So another good thing about the gold items is the active items and the eye items. And this is often asked of me of why I do this, okay? And why I buy what I buy. So it's preferential for most. But mainly what it boils down to is if you are not really, if you're going to use the active, the active is really beneficial. But if you need that extra item slot and you think the game is going to last longer, right? If your team comp is a team comp that scales really well and you think the game is going to last longer, so you got like a Vayne, you got a Kale top and then a Z or something, people that all scale, or Jackstop, whatever, that scale really well, then it's okay to go the eye item and save that slot for, another item if it gets to the 50-minute mark. Most games don't get that far though, so it's okay to, it's probably preferential to go for the active items just because pinks aren't as preferential in the lower elos and necessary as they are in the upper, but still you want to be buying pinks and walking around with them. If you have if there's an enemy Vayne, you should probably go for the eye item. That way you can just keep 2 pinks in your pocket the entire time, and you're not hindering yourself having to walk around with these. Okay. Yes, Ancient, this is going to go on YouTube tomorrow. Please subscribe there, and I will be putting it out there, okay? Sorry, it's not, I don't know why it's not pausing and loading for you, but I hopefully, we'll get that situated, and I will private message you the link for it if you can't find it tomorrow. So moving on, developing habits. So, number one thing is you need to be looking at the map every 3 to 5 seconds, okay? And a lot of people actually have a problem with this because it's habitual. It just takes time, takes practice, just like CSing, mechanics, stuff like that. You need to be developing your eye training to be looking at the map every 3 to 5 seconds because within 3 to 5 seconds, an enemy champion could move from one bush to the other, we'll say like their jungler or something, and you didn't see it. Well, now they're coming from an area where you didn't notice, if it's like, like over a 7-8 second period, and now you're dead. So try to look at the map every 3 to 5 seconds. Good way of practicing that is using a metronome. You can just Google metronome. There's a couple websites out there that you can use. And you can set it so that there's different intervals. And every other interval, let's say 4 seconds, it makes just a little boom, boom. So, and as soon as you hear that audio cue, you look at the minimap. And you just do this, for a week or two. It kind of gets annoying, but, you do it for a week or two, then you don't really need it anymore. You got your habit down. It takes about 2-3 weeks to develop a habit, so if you got your habit down, you're golden. You're good. Is this going to go deeper, or am I going to talk about the basics? I'm going to go deeper into it. I'm going over a lot of the basics right now because these are a lot of things that people don't actually use. And people don't actually understand. The majority of the population in League of Legends is bronze through gold. A lot of this stuff isn't even used. A lot of people that play support in these elos don't even main it. If If you main it in this elo, then kudos to you, but you're still doing something wrong. Okay? So if you're not doing these things, then you're not supporting at the maximum capability that you can be. Okay? Also, check that anytime you see an enemy comes out of Fog Aware, just going over the basics again, look at the scoreboard, because this is where you can look at wards, item charges, new purchases. So if you see their jungler, has a pink, and he goes from mid lane up into the top jungle, and then you see him go to the top lane, and he doesn't have his pink, well, he places pink somewhere in his top jungle. You know that, you can count that. There can only be 5 pinks at one time. Secondly, counting wards. If you guys don't know how to count wards, there can only be 5 pinks at a given time, like I just said, so you can count how many you can kill. You can also count how many that the enemy has placed, just looking at ward charges, looking at how many you kill. For instance, the enemy's support has 1 charge left, and you just killed 1. Well, they only have 1 charge left out on the map, mostly. Okay. Ward rubble also we will be going over, which is red trinket use. Ward rubble usually means that the bush is not warded. Reason being, a ward just died. Therefore, if the ward just died in there, that it has not been replaced. Okay. So if you don't need to reuse your red trinkets in this, and I see a lot of people do that, and then like 4 seconds later, the enemy support will place a ward in there. Well, you could have, if you just wait. I highly doubt anyone really keeps up with their wards up in the lower elos to be replenishing these ward spots and ward placements. Okay. So we're gonna be going over vision, and we'll be getting Rift Kit out for that. So this is Rift Kit. Whoop. Give it a second to work. There it is. Okay, so vision. So guys, I often get asked where are the best pink locations and pink possibilities. So this is pretty much the best way to be having or be placing your pink wards as a support on the blue side. Okay. So the reason why I have all these locations is these are going to be primary locations that you're going to be placing as a pink, and these are going to vary game to game. This is going to be your number 1 priority. It's always the tri-bush. Reason is you can prevent ganks coming from here. You gain vision, so your jungler can come through and disallow the enemy from having vision. But that's pretty basic, but we're not going to go into that. Secondly, this pink ward right here, what this does, and I don't see a lot of people doing this, and you guys have to understand, if you're playing in a matchup, right, where you have supports and your AD carry, and you guys are constantly pushing, we'll say the AD carries to support Tristana. She farms really badly under tower, and you're pushing this wave, right? Then you need to have this pink placed here. Reason is, this disallows the top laner, the enemy top laner, from TPing behind you guys for a gank right here. And nobody really does this from what I've seen in the lower elo, and and they fall susceptible to having a enemy ward placed right here, and then they get collapsed on. Well, it can all be prevented by walking around with pinks. Okay, so you should be carrying those 2 pinks, like I said. So if you have a pink ward in here, and you've been pushed up for 2 to 3 minutes, and if you are really, really not counting on the enemy jungler coming in through your tri-bush area, then pink this instead. Get rid of this. That way you can prevent this, because this is more likely to happen than having, the enemy jungler come through here. For instance, if you guys have control of Scuttle and you have vision over there, it's perfectly fine to pink this and not have this pinked. Secondly, this pink ward right here. So if you cannot keep control over this bush because you have the enemy team pushing into your tower completely, like we'll say it's a Blitzcrank or something, and every time you place a pink, Blitz comes and kills it. You're playing Jan or Soraka, so you guys don't really have catch and kill on the AD carry. Then don't keep your pink here, because putting 4 or 5 pinks here is just going to keep getting killed. You're wasting gold value. Okay, keeping your pink in this area, it prevents the enemy jungler from coming in through this area, since they have control of this. Okay, it prevents them from coming in here unnoticed. Otherwise, you should also have this worded right there. This allows you to notice a dive happening. Okay, so if you have this set up right here, in this situation where you can't have this pinked, this is the next best area. Okay, so you lose out on control of this, and you lose out on control of Tribush, but you do have control over this area. And this is important because this can still be prevented from a dive or seeing the enemy jungler, whatever. If you still lose control, like if you still don't have control of this bush, then this is your last pink ward spot. And this pretty much also does what this pink ward does, just in a less prominent area. But if the enemy jungler makes this route like this, he just comes through here, this pink ward will give him vision, and I highly doubt he will actually check this. Sometimes also, smart junglers, if they know this is pink, they've walked in there, they hit it twice, and then your enemy jungler came, or your teammate jungler came and prevented him from killing it. What they'll do is they'll hop over here, and then gank. So this pink ward will prevent that, but it's not prominent. It's not, as strong as the other three. But these are the areas that you need to have pinked at the most prominent, at the most crucial points of laning phase. Should be pinked all the time. At least one of them should be pinked during laning phase. Secondly, I often get asked, how or what is the best scenario to have vision? Okay, if we're pushed to tower, because what happens is, and you guys have all experienced this, everybody has, is that you guys are pushed to tower, and you have vision in areas, but you still get ganked and you still end up dying. So, the best possible scenario, in my experience, is to have these places pinked. You have a green here, you have a green here, you have a pink here, and then you have a pink here, with a last green ward being right here. That's the best area, and this requires your ADC to pink this bush, but this is the best area. Reason is, you disallow, like we said earlier, the top laner from being able to come through there. You disallow the jungler from coming around any of these areas, and you have vision. This stops him from being able to come through this way. This stops him from being able to come through the jungle this way. And this stops him from coming through this way. If he comes through the jungle, either one of these routes, your mid laner should see him, or if we're looking at the map every 3 to 5 seconds, you will most likely see him come through one of these ways. So you're pretty much preventing all gank areas and gank patterns and routes that the enemy jungler can have if you have these three placed. Problem is getting to these. Good question. Desaro asks, can you red sweep your front bush instead of pink it? If you red sweep this, good question, right? And then you can see push up here. Yes, that is perfect. That's a really good question. But that requires you to have your red trinket up. Sometimes you might not have it up. If you're not really relying on your ADC to pink one of these areas, then yes, red trinket this and keep this area. I know it's getting messy, so we'll just kind of remake that. We got there, and oops, there. Okay, so if you have a red trinket and you trinket, the back one, that's perfectly fine. Just know that since you don't have this red trinket, then you just got to be, wary of that. So also objective control. A lot of people make the mistake of having the wrong idea of objective control, and it's very, very, I don't know, consistent with what I've seen in support players. So we'll say Dragon's coming up, right? It's 1:30. You just based, and Dragon's coming up. So what they do, and what I see often is, okay, Dragon's coming up. I will buy pink. This is the mindset they have. They pink here, they ward here, ward here. Great. They have a minute left, and they sit here. And they sit around and wait for Dragon. No, you need a back. Okay, because what ends up happening is in the last 20 seconds, when the whole enemy team starts gathering and start clearing your wards, and all you have left is, this and maybe this, well, now you don't have any vision over this whole area where they could be grouped. Okay, and that's why you back. So if you place your wards around these contested objectives and you have about 40 seconds, back and get more wards. That way, when they clear them, you can just place them right back. Or you can place them in closer areas. So if they, let's say, delete it all. So if you have this pinked and, this one ended up staying, and if they kill the other two, and you guys, it's too risky to go in here, and this is going to happen a lot, so you can't get these deep wards that you had before in these areas, then place them in areas that are just right below it, okay? So you're moving your wards. That way you still have vision, you're still maintaining control of the objective, but you still have vision, all right? And you still have wards. If you have a minute left, there's no reason not to back and get it. You just got to make sure you tell your team that. Otherwise, they try and fight at 4v5, then that's their fault. But that's your job. Vision's your number one priority. Okay? And this will allow you guys to have objective control. This will allow you guys to maintain objective control. This is your primary way of carrying is through vision, right? If a team fight takes place, and since they cleared this, you guys don't have vision of this, and your ADC can't auto whoever's in here and ends up getting punished for it, then that kind of fell on you because you didn't back and have that ward, right? Indirectly, they don't notice that, and you might not notice that, but that's what makes or breaks a good support player from a bad support player, okay? Is having these ward charges. Also, like I said earlier, having good vision, would be around having vision here. Pretty much these entrances and bushes, are pretty much the dominant areas you want to have, and this is going to be pretty conversely for the red the opposite side as well, Baron. Another thing I also tend up seeing a lot is so it's worth question by Grenade. So it's worth giving up the position to go grab drag more wards before attempting to Drake. Yes. So if dragons, okay, it takes about 20 seconds to get from base back to dragon. Okay. Depending on who you are and what items you have and such. If you have, let's say, like a fairly fast support like Janna or something, or whoever, it's probably going to be around the 35, 38, 40-second mark. But if you're really fast and you got Mobies, whatever, it's not going to take that long. So if your team can literally wait for 20, 35 seconds, then you will be fine. The 20 seconds I'm not actually accounting for the 8-second back time, 7-second back time. So it's about 30-second to 40-second mark. But if it's like up in 20 seconds, no, you shouldn't back. If you have about a 45 seconds to a minute, then yeah, it's worth the back, definitely. Sorry, that was kind of a long, diluted answer. Another problem I also see a lot of supports having is, we'll say that this support, right? Team fight just occurred. Dragon's coming up in a minute. Everybody dead except the support. He has wards in these two bushes. He has one in his pocket. He barely escapes with his life. He comes over here and he backs. And he has one ward in his pocket. And this happens. This is probably the most consistent thing I've seen with supports do. If you have a ward charge and you're basing, you better be placing that ward somewhere before basing. Okay? Even placing it here. Because if he comes back into lane, he backs, and he comes back and he puts a ward right here. Well, he just wasted a timer on a ward that he could have already had and maintained there. So this ward charge could have been prevented, right? He could still have the 3 wards left in his sightstone and be placing them in different areas, or at least sit on one. That way he doesn't have to necessarily back around dragon, right? So if you have a ward charge and you're basing, that's a big no-no. You need to be having your ward charges before depleted, unless it's circumstantial, at all times. Okay? Unless these 3, if you have a Ruby Sightstone and you got, wards here, wherever, and you need vision there, keep it there if you're on the opposite side of the map, whatever. But for the most part, if you have ward charges, use them before you base. Excuse me. So, going into that, we're going to talk about roaming, and a big portion of roaming is kind of a 4-step process that you have to be thinking. You have to analyze the costs and the benefits that's worth the roam. So we'll talk about that. You got to observe the probability of actually gaining anything. So you analyze it, then what's the probability? So you analyze the benefit. So we'll say getting a kill. What's the probability of getting that kill? Okay. How am I going to set up the kill and the roam, more importantly? And now it's time to execute. Okay, so we're planning ahead. That's the big thing of roaming. You don't just wander and walk and play like a robot. You plan it. Okay. Grenade looks like a lengthy question, so I'll have to get back to that in a minute. Going forward, analyzing the roam. Step 1. When roaming, you begin to lose gold. If you play support, which all of you should, you understand that you fall behind in experience, gold, and items. Okay? You're typically a level or two below the rest of, your team. So, and that's due mainly because of roaming, but also because you're not actually accumulating and last hitting and doing all this other stuff, but roaming. So, when you roam mid or top, it can result in two things. A, you get a benefit, sorry, you're unable to get anything. So you didn't gain an advantage by making them blow a flash. Okay, you didn't make them lose any like 3 waves of CS. You didn't get a kill. You didn't get an objective. You didn't get anything. Okay, and that happens a lot. Or you do get something. So you get a kill. You force them to flash. You got a tower. You got a neutral objective. Okay, so you got all these other things. So you have to analyze what's the benefit of me roaming mid? What's the cost? Why should I do it versus why should I? Okay, the mid laner will say Syndra doesn't have flash. I'm playing Thresh. It's a pretty good idea if I go mid because there's a high probability that I can flay, hook, or ult Syndra and get her in place and set up a kill for my teammate. Or if I do roam, is my bottom lane ADC gonna die? Is he gonna get 2v1s, get killed, and we end up losing tower? These are the things you gotta weigh. Not only what are you gonna lose, but what is your partner gonna lose. Your ADC is your partner. He's your right hand man. You heard earlier, your ADC is your bitch. So he's your right hand man. You can't leave your bitch to die. You gotta protect him. Even though that's your secondary objective, you can't leave him to die. And that really comes up questioning what's the probability of gaining these advantages are, and what's more important. Is getting the kill more in mid lane more important than possibly giving a kill bottom lane? Because if the bottom lane notices that you're roaming mid, they may full hard engage your ADC and end up getting a kill. So these are the things that you need to be weighing before you do it. Excuse me, I'm like coughing. Now the general question is, if I roam, is my loss of any of these possible things less important than the probability of gaining a reward? Yes, roam. No, don't. If your ADC is 6-0, your mid laner's 2-3, and you're worried that he may die if you roam, don't roam. That's shutdown gold, alright? Your 2-3 mid laner may not totally benefit from this roam. ADC is more important, so you're weighing the costs, benefits, and the probability of actually gaining or losing something, okay? So factors to consider before you roam and analyzing it. Number 1, what's the location and the way the wave is the pushing in the minions. So which ways if you don't know wave management, there's a lot of videos out there that can fully and indefinitely explain how to control wave management. But for now, we're just going to be generalizing it and talking about pushing or getting pushed in. That means they're autoing every minion, they're pushing it really hard. So either to and fro is what we're going to be talking about. Number 2, the summoner cooldowns. That's a job of yours. You got to be keeping track. If you can't really keep track, hold down tab, look at the scoreboard, and if you scroll over one of the enemies or yours teammates, cooldowns like Flash, for example, if they're running the cooldown reduction, or if they have summoner spell cooldown reduction, it'll show on their portrait. So if you hover over like Ezreal, who's on the enemy team's Flash, and it's 300 seconds, and then if you roam over yours and you're running the Mastery, and then you're running the the other cooldowns and stuff, and you see it's 210, it tells you the difference if you're doing that. Okay. So if you're having a hard time, use that to adjust cooldown in your head, and use timestamps as well. Number 3, possible enemy ward locations. Where has their support been roaming? Where has your support been moving? Has he just came to lane? Does he have all of his ward charges? Does he not? Is there ward rubble in a bush? Is the ward rubble not in a bush? These are the things you got to be looking at before you roam. Because if you see him go and place a ward in river and you saw it happen, why are you roaming through river? They see you there. So that's kind of common sense. So if you know or have a good idea of where wards are, don't roam in those areas. 4, where's your junglers at? If you roam with anyone, late game, a lot of people actually, what they do is they follow their ADC. Don't follow the ADC, guys. You got to be following the jungler. Okay, the jungler is the one that's going to be manipulating lane to lane, objective to objective. The ADC is going to be going where the most farm is. A lot of people think that you should be holding your ADC's hand and walking him through all these things. Don't be doing that. Roam where you're going to be most needed. If your jungler is roaming mid for a 2v1, and the enemy jungler ends up being there for a 2v2, you can still outnumber by roaming with your jungler and make it a 3v2 and come out on top. Okay? So roam with your jungler. And more often than not, the enemy support is also going to be roaming with their jungler as well. And that's what you should be doing. Don't roam with your support. Don't be following your support if you don't know what to do. Be roaming with your jungler. They're the ones that's going to be moving through the map the most. Okay? And number 5, how long is it going to take you to get this roam? And how long is it going to take for you to get back? Like I said, you can't be leaving your ADC out there to die and be killed, so you need to make sure that you are there to protect him when the lane gets pushed back to him, okay? So, typically when you roam, you want your wave pushed into the enemy tower, okay? What this does is over time, the enemy tower will push the wave slowly back to your tower, all right? So if you push it all the way to the tower, your ADC has no business being up there by himself. 0. If he ends up dying, that's his fault. He shouldn't have been there. What he can just do, if he's a patient little boy, is just sit there for like a good minute and just wait or go take Krugs, whatever. He can wait for the bot lane minions to bounce back into his tower. Okay? So that's your most important and most basic time to roam is when you push it into tower and it's going to stay at tower for a good minute or so. That gives you a full minute, like I just said, to go and roam. And then that's, once we see the situation kind of start up, that's where we start developing and thinking about the probability of actually getting anything, okay? So if we're taking all these factors into consideration and analyzing any probability, so we got the location, the summoner cooldowns, the enemy wards, the location of the jungler, and the time necessary. Let's put that into a practical situation. The probability of gaining an advantage. So what's the situation? Team fight just occurred. Many cooldowns, right, were burned on both sides, but you kept track, for the most part, of who used what. You and Jhin return to lane and push the double wave to the enemy tower, where Alistar and Lucian are last hitting to freeze the wave. Okay, this is a very common and actually what happened on a lot of games, so this is a situation that's very common. So big team fight just happened, boom, we're pushing in. The enemy mid laner does not have flash. Your mid laner does not have flash. You do have flash and you have exhaust, but your ADC also has flash. The enemy bot lane does not have flash. You guys ended up winning, okay? But Dragon is up. And you see one as you're walking over, and that's what this little bubble here is. You see an enemy ward rubble in the bot lane river. There is a probability of gaining advantage, yes or no? And do you roam? Yes or no? What do you guys think? Should you roam in a situation where you guys just fought, you guys ended up getting ahead, your mid laner Ahri does not have flash, the enemy mid laner Syndra does not have flash, you do have flash and exhaust, your ADC has flash, but the enemy bot lane does not have flash, which is Alistar and Lucian, just to clarify. So Alistar and Lucian versus Jhin, you and Ahri v Syndra. Should you roam or not? Anybody want to take a guess? Give it a minute. If you're watching this on YouTube, just take a minute and think about it before we answer it. And if you do roam, why would you roam? If you don't roam, why not? Can anybody... Okay. Okay, so we got some disagreements here. Desaro, Ghostman both say that they would roam. Orange Way says he would not. Can you guys please tell me why? back it up with some suggestions. Okay. Grenade also says that he would roam. All right, so we got a couple people saying that they would, and a couple saying that they won't. That they won't, and this is good. This is up for discussion. This is a very probable and very likely situation actually be happening. You know, with the difference of champions, but this does happen. Hmm. Okay, so some are saying. Oh, so Ghostman's taking back is what he said. He says that actually Lucian is more mobile than Jhin, and Jin's flash might not save him. So I take back what I said. All right. So good. You guys are thinking. All right. So now we're engaging the brain. We're not just playing League mindlessly. Okay. So you know that if you go mid, you are most likely guaranteed to kill because the enemy mid laner is immobile, and you have a mobile mid laner Ari to also back up with some CC and get a kill. Okay. However, the enemy bot lane, Lucian, is very mobile, can follow up Alistar if he gets the combo up, and Jin's pretty much dead unless he flashes. Right? But even if he does flash, there's always the chance that they still get the kill because of how mobile Lucian is. He can, you know, if Alistar knocks him up, Lucian can just walk up, get the Q off, get the double auto, get the W off, double auto, get the E off, double auto, and then use his ult to pick up the kill. So that's very probable. Okay? It's a very back and forth situation. There is no clear-cut answer, okay? You can roam, and you're most likely going to guarantee a kill. You can not roam and engage the bot lane. You're probably not going to actually get a kill, but there's a good chance that you could. It's situational. But if we look at it, the probability of gaining a kill mid is a lot higher than actually the enemy bot lane getting a kill on Jhin. Okay? You have flash, you have exhaust. Ahri is a lot more mobile than Syndra, who does not have flash, and she's pushing up. Both junglers are top. Although Dragon is still a contested objective, both junglers are top. So even if you do leave and this ends up going wrong, it's unlikely that the Jagger will be taken. Okay. So in this situation, I actually would roam, even though I'm putting my ADC at risk of dying. He has flash. I'm telling him I'm roaming, so he should be wary that he's going to be engaged on in the next minute, and I'm going mid. So this is a situation where I would roam. It's very situational, though. It can go both ways. I totally understand. But in my perception, I would roam because it's a higher probability of gaining an advantage in mid lane than losing an advantage in bot lane. Okay? Right. And Lucian does need... Jhin does need peel. But you guys gotta... You also have to understand that if you're not stressing it to them that you are roaming, then if they die, it's their fault because they shouldn't. Jhin does not have any business actually being up here anyways. If they're pushing, okay, if the tower's pushing, then all Jhin has to do is literally sit back here and wait, and he should be fine under tower until you get back. Now, if he's at tower, right, defending against these two, and you're still roaming, waiting on mid to make a move, that's where you need to be back because they will dive him. Okay. So how do you set up a roam? Typically, you look at the possibility of roaming mid or top every time you back. If you have your ADC with you, it's a good time because usually the enemy will push your minions to your base, so he should be safe until you get back there and it gets stalled in the middle of the lane. So anytime you're at base with your ADC, look to roam. Okay? Is someone pushed up? Do they have wards? Where's your jungler going? We're asking all these questions and looking at the factors that we talked about before, and that's what we're doing, okay? So we're just looking at the probability of gaining these advantages around the map or in lane by doing that. But by understanding this, you should also be preemptively setting up the roam. So if the roam isn't already set up for you, like I just said, that the enemy bot wave is pushing into your tower, then you need to set it up, okay? So if you are in lane, all right, with your ADC, then you need to set up the roam. You either need to make a decision by having him freeze it at his tower or push it all the way to their tower and informing him that you intend to roam. Like, and what he says, you always ask yourself questions during the game. Like, why am I so bad? This is what you guys got to be doing. You got to be asking yourself questions for planning ahead. If you're just playing the game mindlessly, you're not going to go anywhere. But if you're playing the game and questioning yourself as you play the game, then you will be fine. So, pushing the wave, prepping your wards, getting them in place, getting your ward path in place, if you're roaming, you should have vision on bot lane so that you can see if the enemy jungler or the enemy top laner is going to TP and kill your ADC. You should be clearing any wards to prevent that from happening as you're going to roam. This should all be done as you're going on. And like I've been saying, you need to be telling your team what you're going to be doing before you do it. That way they understand and that your ADC is not left out to dry and die. Okay. So yeah, give me 1 second. So if you're not doing any of these things, then you're not effectively setting up the roam to the best possibility that you can be doing. Okay. Like I've been saying, and I'm stressing it because you get blamed a lot. Your support, you get blamed, you don't get the credit. If he dies, it's not your fault. Okay? So setting up the wave, pushing it, having it frozen, and you can often tell by your ADC if they understand wave management, because if he's freezing when he should be freezing, then he understands, when he should be freezing. So those are more fine. But if you're more in like the bronze, low silver, silver area, most people actually don't understand wave management. So if the only time I would really roam in those situations is if you're pushed a tower like in the previous situation. But if they otherwise in the other elos, if he understands wave management, and some ADCs, I'm not saying not all, but if some ADCs in silver and such do understand wave management, then that's fine. If you can notice it by the way he's been playing, you should be watching your ADC, then trust him, okay? You trust him. You let him do his thing. So now we're just gonna kind of talk about the different kind of supports that there are in League and how each of them carry categorically. Okay, and the number one and probably the strongest right now, one of the two strongest, are utility supports. And these guys are the ones, like the name says, have utility. So they have buffs, debuffs, heals, movement speed. Like they have all these different things in their kit to provide for their team. Bard, aka the utility god, just provides a lot. So it's these supports that offer utilization of their abilities to benefit their team as a whole. Okay, so these are the kind of supports that are really seen in meta right now, and are probably a lot more prevalent than the other two categories. But yeah, so crowd control is also a core of them. And as I show you them, then you'll be noticing, yeah, all of them kind of do have a lot of crowd control into their abilities. Janna, great one. She has good disengage, good engage. She has a slow debuff, but she also has a passive buff. A passive buff to her team. She offers a heal. She's pretty much her Bard and Thresh are kind of like the trio of what a utility support is. And while a lot of people actually think that Thresh is a tank, he isn't. He's not that tanky at all. He's not as tanky as some people would make him out to be. And these supports also want to focus a lot on move speed, because the best way to maximize your utility is to be using it throughout the map, right? So you're not just using a bot lane, you're roaming constantly. So if you're playing any of these supports, you're going to want to be roaming a lot more, because that's their main objective, is to be using their utility as much as possible, all right? And to be using it around the map as much as possible. That's the big strength of these guys, okay, over the other two. So provide as many bonuses to the team as possible, sustain the team with shields, and to provide CC or whatever, heals, silences if you're playing Soraka, etc., to heal and keep your team alive. These guys are pretty much all about passive play and zoning. That's the typical kind of playstyle you want to have. You can be aggressive on a couple of them, like Thresh, Bard, but typically you're going to want to be playing passive and allow your team to carry, be the front line, apply the damage, and you just provide the utility, okay? So you're just like the cook. You're adding your special ingredient to all the other ingredients of damage and tankiness and all these other good jazz, while providing utility, special ingredient, to come out with a win. All right. So you need to be buying items to help with your cooldown. Your cooldowns for these abilities. You need to be buying items for move speed to be roaming as much as possible. You need to be build items to keep yourself alive or to keep your ADC alive. That's where you're coming with. Wait, is Leona considered a utility support? No, not in my idea. So these are the 10 utility supports that you probably will see. So you got Bard, Janna, Karma, Lulu, Morgana, Nami, Sona, Soraka, Thresh, Zillion, and a couple of them you guys are gonna be like, oh no, that's like Thresh, that's a tank one. No, he's not. A lot of his plays revolve around his utilization of the lantern or his hook or his flay. It's a lot of crowd control based, and keeping his carry alive while moving around the map and keeping his team alive using his lantern. Okay, he's actually not a tank. That's not how you're supposed to be playing him, even though you go in. Secondly, supports like Karma, Morgana, Zillion can also be damage supports. Don't get me wrong, they can, but they are. If you fall behind on any of them and you're trying to build them damage, you're just gonna fail. And we'll get into damage supports later. But these guys, you want to build utility base. So Morgana, what I like to do, for example, is I'll go for Lies, okay, instead of Zonias, because I'm providing more utility by having slows in my kit, as well as hard CC. Okay, Karma, using your mantra and giving your whole team a shields and movement speed buff. That is very, very strong. It's a lot more useful than applying damage that may or may not be useful later on. Okay, you can build them damage oriented. That's fine in some cases. And if I've had a game where I was like 7-1 on Lulu. Like if you do that, go damage. But for the most part, you're gonna want to be building these guys around their cooldowns and around movement speed to keep your team alive. Secondly, we're moving to tank supports. So tank supports are typically the main frontline for the team. These are your initiators. These are your engagers. These are the guys that have your high base HP, MR, and armor stats into their kit or into their champion, or buffs, like Leona Shield or her W. Gives her good armor and MR. Or Alistar ult provides damage reduction by a big marginal percentage. Like these are the things that make tank supports. So yeah, stats, stat bonuses, self shields, initiation possibilities. So these are your initiators. These are the guys that you want to be initiating the enemy team on. You're the playmaker. You're not the passive player. You're the aggressive guy. You're the person who's playing Alistar. You're hitting all those headbutt, pulverized combos. You're playing Leona. You're getting these 3-4 man ults. You're playing these champions to initiate for your team. But with that comes a responsibility of decision making and when to engage. But typically, you want to just be the front line. You want to soak up as much damage as possible so that right? So in this situation, we'll say you're playing Leona, right? And the enemy supports Alistar. And you go onto the enemy carry and Alistar goes onto your carry. Basically, what ends up happening is you need to make sure you die after Alistar dies. If you die before Alistar dies, then it's a 2v1 against your teammate ADC, and he will end up losing that. Okay, so your job is to pretty much keep your ADC alive and to make sure that their carries aren't hitting your carries. So you just need to make sure you stay alive long enough so that the enemy tanks die first. Does that make sense? And that's just pressuring the enemy carries. If you get ahead on some of these tanks, you can just pretty much be super, super aggro and punish them. You can even 1v1 them if you get super ahead. I've done that a couple times. Otherwise, you can just walk past the caster minion wave and just sit there, and the enemy bot lane can't do anything, or the enemy team can't do anything, because even if they do all in you, you're still going to be alive because you're so strong and so big. So these are going to be Alistar, Blitzcrank, Braum, Leona, Nautilus, Poppy, Shen, Tahm Kench, Taric, Trundle. I would actually probably say the new Tarek's more utility based, but this was before, like I'd made this before he came out a couple days ago. Um, but these are the guys that are going to be soaking up all the damage, and some of them see a good amount of play right now, some of them don't. But tank supports are probably the second most and second best supports to be playing right now in the meta. I think utility definitely have their place over tanks, just because we're starting to shift a little bit away from tanks. But the initiators, if you like initiating, if you like being the front line, if you like doing all this stuff, these are the guys that play. These are the playmaking people. Um, and these are definitely the guys you need to be playing and putting yourself ahead in lane to have an impact later by being unkillable. Okay, and these guys actually typically don't need as much items as the others because their main job is to tank, and that's often built into their stats and their abilities. So they actually, like, Alistair doesn't need a whole lot of items to be tanky. Leona doesn't need a whole lot of items to be tanky. Nautilus, Trundle, they, like, most of these guys don't need items to be really tanky. Okay, utility supports, they need items for their cooldown. They need items for their movement speed. They're more item dependent than these tank supports. Okay, and lastly, carry supports. So these carry supports are the guys who are able, it should be able instead of apply, who are able to apply enough damage to become a third carry role on the team. Okay, so a couple of those previously were Morgana, Zillion, playing a couple of these guys who just build damage. Okay, so their role actually is to not keep their carry alive. Their role is to kill the other carries or kill the other tanks. They're just a third damage output. So these supports have high base damages, true damage, or spammable abilities. They're not really supports that or champions that are item dependent like the utility based ones. These guys are more dependent upon their bases to do as much damage as possible. So Brand is a great example with his passive and his high base damages. Vel'Koz is another great example. His true damage and his spammable combos that he could be doing to just become another threat. Okay, so if they get ahead, they stay ahead. But if they get behind, they're pretty much useless in a big sense, because damage isn't as important as utility in a lot of areas, nor is damage as important as being able to, especially in this meta, to tank damage. A lot of tanks are able to soak up the amount of burst, like what, let's say, a Vel'Koz can do, and then they'll just kill Vel'Koz in a couple hits. So this is probably going to be the lower end spectrum of the sports that you want to be playing right now, but they still end up working. If you like playing a lot of damage oriented supports, there's probably a couple you could get away with. But these are pretty much the 10 that I have seen. Annie, Brand, Fiddlesticks, Kennen, LeBlanc, Lux, Veigar, Vel'Koz, Ziggs, and Zyra. And with all these mage updates and the Magic mid-season changes coming up, like, this could be changed dramatically. You might be seeing a lot more of these, coming out to be OP. Veigar, for example, might start being seen a lot in the bot lane. Ziggs as well, since his W can now execute towers, so he doesn't really need items to execute towers. Zyra with her plants. So we might start seeing a lot more of these guys come out. But if you're playing these, you're very damage oriented. Okay. Moving on. So that kind of concludes just a little bit. I definitely want to do a follow up video over some of the stuff I couldn't get to. It was only an hour long, so I didn't have a lot of time to go over some of the indefinite ways to carry. But generally, guys, the main way that you want to carry is through your vision output and your roaming. And I plan on doing 2 separate videos, just because I wasn't able to go into the deep detailed specifics of them that I wanted to be able to do. But at the same time, you guys got to keep in mind that these are the 2 ways that supports can carry. You're not able to fully build and carry the way that the other roles can carry. So you need to be having an impact as a team in general. You shouldn't be buying items for yourself, like Dead Man's Plate. You should be buying items to affect your team and the enemy team as a whole, like Frozen Heart or Locket, stuff like that. Because that is your primary function, is a team player. If you're not a team player, if you're a selfish player, that's fine. you should probably just pick up a different role then. Supporting is all about keeping your whole team ahead and keeping your whole team alive rather than just playing for yourself and individually. If you guys have... Oh, Endgame. Oh, shit. Yeah, Desaro, thank you. Um, good shit, dude. I totally forgot about the Endgame. So, Endgame, thank you. I don't know what happened to my slides. I guess they weren't in here. So we'll talk about Endgame before I conclude. So for the Endgame, basically your main objective is to roam with your team. Okay, so if when it comes down to the 40-50 minute mark, the whole objective comes around inhibitors and Baron, pretty much, or fifth dragon if that is a possible, objective. So your role is to provide vision in some of these areas. And since it's a lot of situational, maybe what I'll do instead, Desaro, since I don't have for whatever reason, my slides didn't save, is maybe I'll pile some videos, footage that I have, or have someone compile it, and do a kind of a 10-15 minute video on what you should be doing in these certain situations as a support. If you're the fifth dragon, where you should be, as a support in those scenarios versus being, ahead, with like two enemy inhibs down, or if a Baron is up. Generally, you want to stick with your team, and you want to be, like I said before, you're going to want to be placing all your wards, backing and having them, and sticking with your team, okay? So if you place wards around Baron and your team backs off, they go and push side lanes or whatever, you need to base and back and make sure that you can pick up these wards so that when you guys do regroup, that you have vision ready to be placed, okay? And that's probably the most important thing, is because what'll end up happening is you guys will be grouped, you will place your wards, you guys will clear wards, and then they will go and clear like top wave or mid lane, and you'll go with them, and then a minute later, a team fight ends up happening, or the enemy team clears out vision because you guys lost pressure, so you aren't able to place anything. So make sure that you guys actually base instead of like going with one or two people. You base and get wards. That way you're ready to place them. I think that's probably the most important thing. But I think maybe since I don't have my slides, I'll just do a whole separate video. If you guys like this, and if you're watching it on YouTube, please post your questions below. Make sure, I'll do a separate video just answering them. And also, what next subject you'd like to have a seminar on. I'm looking for any ideas. And thank you guys for coming and watching. And I hope this is helpful. Xbox, thanks for following, man, and Rising Magic 44, thank you also for following. I hope this really was helpful, and I really hope this does help you guys have a different outlook on support and what you guys should be doing and how you guys carry as supports. So I will just take a couple more minutes. Can I have a link to YouTube? It's down at the bottom. You can find it right below if you just click the YouTube banner. So follow any of that stuff. If you guys have any questions that you guys want me to do in a separate video, or in the follow-up, please post it right now, and I can just go over, I'll probably make a video about that in a week or two with the follow-up, depending on how much time I have. Let's see. Whew. But yeah, guys, thank you guys for coming. Could you elaborate when you said that you shouldn't roam when any enemy support roams? No, you should roam. I don't. When the enemy support roams, if the enemy support roams, like let's say if you're bot lane, right, and the enemy support roams mid, and you see him mid, you need to either all in that 180 carry, or you need to leave and make sure that you're helping out your team, right? So if you're not applying pressure somewhere, then you're failing at the same time. So if you see the enemy support roam top or mid or wherever, and you notice it on the map, because we're looking at the map every 3 to 5 seconds, you need to be applying pressure somewhere. So you either need to be, let's say, all inning that 180 carry, zoning him off of CS, getting that tower, or going mid, or going wherever the fight's going on, trying to help out there and get there in time. Even let's say if like is a 4v3, like you and your ADC are bot lane, the enemy ADC is bot lane, but everything else is fighting top lane, and you guys can't all in that enemy ADC and get a kill, then go mid, push that wave, and at least push that wave and that wave of minions into mid tower so that they lose a little bit of experience and gold. Place your wards around the next objective, whether that's mid, dragon, Rift Herald, back and get items if you're not able to actually go out and help the team or if it's too late. Okay? Good question, Grenade. I should have gone over that. I'll make sure to be doing that in the next video, man. Alright, 3 more minutes, guys, and then I'll be getting off. I'm going to go get some ice cream with my girlfriend. Is it worth selling coin later in the game to get Frost Queen's claim for the slow passive, especially on champs like Jen and Morgana that use Frost Queen's claim passive in their abilities and the extra vision it can provide? Yeah, it's totally worth it, man. If you want to do that, do that. It's just, remember, when you sell and buy a new item, it does take some dinero. So if you can afford to do that, definitely do that. But you gotta also realize that late game, right? If it's around the 55-minute mark, 50-minute mark, 45-minute mark, you should be selling any of these active items and getting one of the items. That way you have an extra item slot to build up items for yourself. Okay? So make sure that you guys be doing that. Okay? Items are important late game. Active items are better early. Oh, Noctane, I'm sorry, man. Sorry you just missed it. Like I said, guys, I will be posting this on YouTube tomorrow. Sometime. Don't know when. Probably in the morning. I'll probably be getting up early in the morning and putting it up. Oh, good question. Before we close out, should I be taking Ignite or Exhaust? You take Ignite if you have kill potential. Take Exhaust if you're afraid your enemy, or if one of your carries can get blown up by an enemy carry. So like Zed, Fizz, LeBlanc, something like that. Then take Exhaust. But if it's like the enemy team has like a Ziggs, and the enemy carries like an Ezreal, just bring Ignite. Because I highly doubt you're going to even be able to exhaust them anyways. I'm most melee engaged supports with a Vayne ADC. Do you think you take Ignite or Exhaust? It's the same thing, man. If you want to be aggro, more power to you. If you're playing a lot of these tank supports, you're able to take Ignite. Okay, so because you have a lot more CC, and you can lock them down in place and get your teammate ADC to get a kill. But if you're playing like the utility support, you should basically, if you're playing utility support, you should be taking Exhaust. Unless you're playing like Thresh. If you're playing a damage support, you should be taking Ignite because that's what you're trying to do, is apply damage. If you're taking a take support, you should be taking Ignite or Exhaust, depending on the protection of your ADC or being able to get to the enemy carries. Mask Link, yeah, we can do those sometime, man. What do you do if you pick an engaged support and the ADC picks a weak early ADC? Do you still try and play aggro, or you play more passive, realizing your ADC is weaker than theirs early? If your ADC is weaker than theirs, you got to understand power spikes. And I'll incorporate them into the follow-up video, Noctane, about power spikes and when to engage and when to be aggro in certain matchups. If you want to put up a certain matchup that I could toy around with, I'd be happy to show you. Otherwise, guys, I'm getting off. Thank you all for coming. Please follow if you haven't. Please give me ideas of what I should be doing for my next one. Hopefully this helped. Post any questions you have, and I can follow up and do a question response. That's it. If you guys got anything else, when is the next seminar? It'll be. I gotta find a topic first. I got a topic. I gotta have a topic first. So I'll think of it, and I probably will be doing like one a month, so probably in May. Have a good one, guys. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks for watching. Follow if you haven't, and look forward to seeing you guys later.